Welcome to VSB News Online for Friday, November 14th. I'm Peter Cattell. It is a rare sight in Parliament to see the government walk out of the proceedings, but we saw it today. VSB News' Adrian Smatt gives us the bizarre details.
The entire body of the OBA parliamentarians walked out of the chamber this morning as Opposition Leader Mark Bean began to read the opposition's reply to the throne speech. But the unusual gesture had nothing to do with government policies. OBA Chairman Senator Lynn Woolridge said in a statement that it was a demonstration of the ruling party's outrage and disgust at what she termed the vile comments allegedly made by Mr. Bean at Tony Daniels, an OBA official, at the Sandy South by-election advance poll on November 6th. The decision to exit the chamber, she said, is not one that was made lightly, and the OBA calls on the opposition to take action to address the situation. The PLP's continued silence can only be seen, she said, as condoning behavior that shows categorical disrespect for women. The government members moved to their meeting room in the Assembly building and returned to the chamber after lunch. Later, Deputy Opposition Leader David Burt commented, "Today's walkout by the One Bermuda Alliance government wasn't a walkout on the PLP, but it was a walkout on the people of Bermuda." Earlier today, Bermuda's parliament received no statement from the government on the recent gun violence, no statement on the $200 million airport that has been awarded without a tender, and no government bills were tabled today. It seems that the Premier, Michael Dunkley, and the OBA find it more important to plan and play political games than to focus on the urgent matters facing the people of Bermuda. This is not governing, and this is certainly not the leadership that the people of this country need. That was a statement from Deputy Opposition Leader David Burt. For VSB News, I'm Adrian Smatt.
Auditor General Heather Matthews has released a highly critical report on the way the Port Royal Golf Course refurbishment, initially budgeted at $4.5 million, finished up costing $24 million, with no clear explanation of how the Board of Trustees and the Ministry of Tourism allowed this to happen. VSB News' Brian Darby provides us with some of the report's conclusions.
Similar to other major capital development projects reported on by the Auditor General, this project was not delegated to the Ministry of Works and Engineering, which has the mandate and experience to carry out such a project. Instead, this project was delegated to the Cabinet Office and the Ministry of Tourism and Transport, with the Board of Trustees given the responsibility to manage the project, a role neither of these entities had the technical capacity or the legal authority to undertake in accordance with financial institutions. The special report speaks of cost overruns, a lack of proper oversight and monitoring by the government, loan financing authorised by the Minister of Finance without the approval of Parliament, and a total disregard of established financial practices and controls for the government expenditures, including the lack of tendering and conflict of interest relating to board members, one of whom was a government minister. Further, the Auditor General reports that she cannot conclude whether all the funds received by the Board of Trustees were used for the intended purposes or were fully accounted for due to inadequate accounting records. She notes that the Board of Trustees has not received a clean audit opinion on its financial statements since 1999. In the final analysis, the Auditor General reports that neither the Board of Trustees nor the government can confirm that value for money was achieved in this project, nor can they confirm that taxpayers' funds were effectively managed and protected. Brian Darby reporting for VSB News.
While members of Parliament this morning paid tribute to 49-year-old hotel official Winston Jones following his death in a two-bike crash the day after the visit of Hurricane Gonzalo, the man accused of causing his death was being charged in Magistrates Court, half a block away. Jason Stubble, age 25, of Paget, was charged with causing the death of Mr. Jones by dangerous driving, causing death while driving without insurance, and with causing bodily harm to Mr. Jones' son Sherwin by wanton and furious driving. The two men collided at the junction of Reed and Church Streets in Hamilton only hours after the hurricane had passed. Mr. Jones was taking his son, who was his passenger, to get a shower at the Fairmont Hamilton Hotel. Stubble was not required to enter a plea, as the case must be heard in the Supreme Court. As Tuesday's by-election for constituency 33, Sands South, looms closer, Progressive Labour Party candidate Jamal Simmons says jobs seem to be top of mind with the constituents. He admits to VSB's Charles Webb that, as was suggested by an OBA insider, he is flawed.
I think, first of all, I'd like to thank my hopeful predecessor, Mr. Terry Lister, because it's evident that he did a lot of work on the ground and that he was very active in the community. So there's a certain expectation of hard work and a certain expectation of being accountable. And when I'm meeting people, I think, first, for many cases, it's a sense of homecoming because I'm very familiar. I know a lot of the people there and a lot of them are familiar with me. But the reaction has been very positive, and I think a lot of people are looking forward to Election Day.
Are there any issues that stick out in your mind?
The number one issue, far, far ahead of everything else, is jobs. That's just it. I mean, you know, for years I've been canvassing, and I've never known a period of time during the day when you go out and there are lots of people home. You might find seniors normally, but you see all ages, and people are out of work. And so when you have a situation where you're trying to figure out how am I going to feed my children, how am I going to keep my lights on, that takes precedence. You have the people who want a speed bump, and you have the people who are concerned about White Hill Field, which is a very big issue, but jobs comes first. And I think that's really what we have to address strongly.
How would you respond to the OBA insider who suggested that you were politically flawed?
Well, I suggest as a human being, I'm flawed as anyone else would be. But I think, you know, that person who wrote that is not a constituent number 33. And so I think I'd rather wait on the judgment of the people who actually know me, who've actually spent time with me in the community in which I grew up, and let them see how they feel about me. But I think that it's unfortunate because we're all human beings. We all make mistakes. We all live our lives, and we're held accountable for our actions. And I mean, my record is an open book. Everyone knows the decisions I've made, the statements I've made, and I'm prepared to be held accountable for them.
Now, the 18th is just around the corner. Are you optimistic?
Well, I'll tell you, the advance poll, we had already 12 hours of standing there shaking hands, and it's another 12 hours of standing there and shaking hands. But this is part of what's expected of you. It's part of the job. So, you know, if I didn't think I was up to it, I wouldn't be doing it.
Although he was forced by the government MP's surprise walkout in Parliament to address rows of empty chairs when he rose to speak this morning, opposition leader Mark Bean managed to produce the same 70-minute read as that of the governor last Friday. There were just as many diverse subjects as well as this excerpt demonstrates.
The time is well past to address with the response and resources the judiciary's call for adequate architecture and housing of the criminal courts of Bermuda, and in so doing, uphold the independence and impartiality of the courts. Mr. Speaker, with respect to the public holiday known as Bermuda Day and celebrated on May 24th of each year, there is of necessity the need to change with the times. The PLP believes that moving the Bermuda Day holiday to the Friday of the last week of May every year will have a positive impact on the social, economic state of our country. And we also call for the reinstitution of National Heroes Day, considering the many Bermudians who have made and continue to make valuable contributions to the betterment of Bermuda. It is important that we continue to celebrate these persons so that a legacy can be established and future generations can appreciate their history. With respect to the Physical Abuse Center, it is imperative that we make the necessary allowances, financial or otherwise, to ensure that this vital resource is maintained. Mr. Speaker, we also call for the creation of a public registry of pedophiles. This is long overdue, Mr. Speaker, and with the prevalence of such heinous acts violating the innocence of many of our young people, it is time that the country as a whole is made aware of who these perps are. We also call for the review of the current regulations governing day and child care centers, thereby minimizing the red tape that can delay the creation of new businesses and deter entrepreneurs. Given the noted decline in performance and results in some sports and the successes of others, it is the PLP's view that the time is right for the consideration of a sports academy. Here, notable and experienced sportsmen and women, combined with a first-class educational component, will work in tandem to improve our sports development here on island and build a strong, well-rounded athlete on and off the field of play. The physical education and health standards for our primary and high schools need to be revised to reflect a 21st century model.
The opposition PLP has thrown its weight behind the authorities in calling for the community to help the police find out who has been involved in the recent violence and put a stop to it. Shadow Minister of National Security Walter Roban was flanked by colleagues Michael Scott and Walton Brown when he came out of Parliament to make the appeal.
My colleagues and I condemn those who have committed these acts, call for them to be brought to justice. We also realize that what happened on Tuesday and just yesterday is a painful reminder that not just policing will solve the scourge of gun violence, but it will be a community effort. Bermudians of all walks of life share the disgust and outrage of these events. Despite this, we must all come together and work with the police to identify who have been the perpetrators and to address the root causes of why our young men are targeting each other in this manner. Our prayers are with the victims of the shootings and their families, and we urge calm in spite of these horrible acts. We ask anyone who has seen something to say something. Cooperate with the police. Call Crime Stoppers at 800-8477. And we remind the people of Bermuda that this is a community issue, and we must address it together with the police and others to ensure that we work to eliminate the scourge of this crime. We also ask the Premier, Michael Dunkley, as Minister of National Security, to ensure his undivided attention to this matter. Use current government resources and ensure that the programs in place are properly funded to attack the situation of gang violence and the underlying social issues that do contribute to what we are facing. Government's current posture of fiscal austerity must not limit what we can do to address these issues.
There has been a dramatic improvement of retail sales in September, with receipts increasing 4.2% over last year's figure to record sales of $82.1 million. All retail sectors recorded improved sales, with motor vehicle retailers achieving the strongest increase at 19.3%. Returning residents declared overseas purchases valued at $4.4 million, 10% lower than in September 2013. In times of recession and in times of plenty, there is always one thing to fall back upon, and that is humor. Richard Simon, the impresario who has been bringing us Just for Laughs for the past 7 years, bears that in mind as he prepares for another 4 days of professional mirth-making in January.
Well, Alonzo Bowden is coming back. If I'm not mistaken, it's his 7th time returning. He loves Bermuda. He enjoys being here, so he'll host again. I always consider him to be the glue that holds the event together. And we're really fortunate this year to have Jim Breuer from the U.S. Jim Breuer was on Saturday Night Live in the late 80s. He made the Goat Boy character famous. I'm sure you know Goat Boy. Saturday Night Live was very big in your time. Yeah. He also does a spot-on impression of Joe Pesci. You know who Joe Pesci is? Spot on. So we're really excited to have Jim because people who know Saturday Night Live are going to recognize his name and his face. And we have 2 Canadians this year, Deborah DiGiovanni and Graham Chittenden. It looks like there will no longer be a requirement to have a Bermudian open our shows. So this year we're going to have 2 instead of 1. Jonathan Young is coming back for the umpteenth time. Everybody loves his political humor. And Nadanja, who's performed for us several times, he's coming back this year, so they're going to kind of split the load. Jonathan is opening for our double bill show at Earl Cameron Theatre on Wednesday the 7th, and then he's also doing the Thursday night. He's sharing the Friday night with Nadanja, so you get 2 opening acts. And then Saturday, Nadanja does 10 o'clock and Jonathan does 7 o'clock. So they're kind of splitting the load.
And now we turn to Earl Baisden, all the way from the Central American and Caribbean Games in Veracruz, Mexico, for today's Sports Report.
The 2014 Central American and Caribbean Games will get underway later this evening with the opening ceremony. Donna Watson, the Bermuda team chef de mission, said the team is raring to go, and she also announced who will carry Bermuda's flag into the stadium during the opening ceremony. The 2014 World Rugby Classic final is set following the second semi-final at the National Sports Centre last evening. New Zealand will face the Classic Lions tomorrow night, this after they defeated Argentina 33-12. The Bermuda Football Association's president, Larry Musselden, has released a statement following recent antisocial behavior incidents. The statement reads, "In respect of the Dudley Eve final held at the National Sports Centre, the BFA were pleased to note that almost 1,000 people attended the match, led by Minister of Sport and other dignitaries. We held a minute's silence before the start of the match to honor the Remembrance Day. It was an enjoyable and well-fought match, with players on the field entertaining the crowd with some exciting football." The statement goes on to say, "The players demonstrated good sportsmanship and were most respectful to each other on the pitch. The prize presentation was an honor to Dudley Eve as his family presented the medals and the trophy. Therefore, we were most disappointed with the events that took place outside the grounds of the National Sports Centre on Parsons Road sometime after the game had finished. The BFA encourages anyone who can assist the Bermuda Police Service to contact them and or use the Crime Stoppers hotline. In respect to the incident at the Somerset Cricket Club, the BFA again encourages anyone with information to contact the Bermuda Police Service or Crime Stoppers hotline. Our communities and individuals must do everything we can to stamp out antisocial behavior and unlawful conduct, especially the use of firearms. The BFA stands with our member club, Somerset Cricket Club, in the wake of this senseless incident. We extend any assistance we can to the Somerset Cricket Club and community. Our heartfelt best wishes go out to the individuals who were injured, their families, and the Somerset Cricket Club family who were present and or affected by the incident. We are confident that the activities such as football and other sports will always triumph over antisocial behavior." Musselden goes on to say the BFA extends its sincere thanks to the Commissioner of Police and the Bermuda Police Service members for all of its excellent support and assistance in dealing with these matters. We urge people to bring an end to the gun violence and gang violence. We encourage such people to hand in any firearms, to declare an end to such violence, to come sit at the same table with us to work out a peace plan, to shake hands, to be free, to travel up and down the island, and to love and respect each other as brothers and sisters on our beautiful island. Meanwhile, the Bermuda Football Association have announced that the Premier and First Division matches scheduled for tonight at the Devonshire Recreation Club have been moved to Sunday at the same venue beginning at 12:30 and at 3 p.m. The matches will see Wolves take on Somerset Eagles at 12:30, and then at 3 p.m. the Devonshire Cougars entertain the Somerset Trojans. I'm Earl Baston reporting from Veracruz, Mexico for VSB sports.
Thanks for watching VSB News Online for Friday, November 14th. I'm Peter Cattell.